guys, there's many ways to get our color that we need for our mixture. Now we could just lay down color dry on a piece of paper, but these markers really don't mix well, and I've tried very different ways. Water-based pigment just doesn't turn out the way you think it's going to. I'm going to mix some red and some orange on a plastic sheet, and it being on a plastic sheet, this water-based marker isn't going to stick. And I'm going to add a little bit of water, again not saturated, clean brush, just a little dab of water cleaned off on the side. Always make sure that you dab your brush so you don't have a large quantity of water, and you can use larger quantities of water whenever you mix larger batches of this. But I'm going to lay down my red orange here next to right there, and based on this I would say the way this looks wet doesn't really come off as a red orange. It's still on the orange range and maybe could use some more red, but it gives us a good starting point of when to add in more pigment and when to lay off on another pigment. Yellows, for example, are notoriously weak in their pigment, and you'll find that with a lot of things, like with acrylics especially. Acrylic yellows are very weak in their pigment and even runny and watery. I'm going to mix some orange and red again and see if we can get a better mixture next to each other. And this looks even wet. This looks more red than it is. And I'm just trying to figure out where I can lay this down. Again, that is a darker, slightly darker red, and maybe even a better mix than the previous one. So maybe I want to keep that instead. And it's all due to my adjustment of that red versus orange pigment. And I can wipe that off. This is the great thing about using a plastic palette, is that you can wipe off and clean up your area and lay down some more colors. And right now I'm choosing a blue-green, lay down some green pigment, and if nothing else, this gives you a good handle again on how effective this pigment is relative to the other pigment. You can see that this blue, this warmer blue, barely shows up on the plastic paper, and let's see how it relates to when we start mixing this with a clean brush, how they relate to each other in their mixture. If I start mixing those again, look how strong that green is right now. And I would say that it's a little bit too green, but when I lay that down, I'm really pleasantly surprised on how nice of a blue-green that came out. And I'm just dabbing it just so I get a more saturated version. If I use, or if you use too much water, in this case, in this mixture, it will be less pigment and more watery, and you won't get a good saturated effect on your brush. So just keep that in mind. And as I finish this up, I'm going to make a red violet. And let's see how this turns out with a small clean brush, drop of water. Not even a drop. I just make sure to always dab my brush so I could just get a tiny bit of water, and we can lay that down. And there's my red violet. It's a little bit more muted than I would like. It's probably the fact that the red isn't very strong, and this is based on previous mixes that I've done. But again, it's all an experiment. And let's see what happens when you try to get yours down. All right, guys, good luck.